This is the review packet for 3.6 through 3.8. And we're starting in 3.6, looking at some inequalities, basic solving of them, and graphing. So starting with the first one, which is number 5. We see multiplication. Just like we see an equation, we're going to undo the multiplication to get a isolated. And so we're going to divide by 13 here. And with inequalities, the one thing we're looking for is when we divide by a negative, we're going to flip it. So we didn't divide by a negative, we divided by a positive 13. So there's no flip. So it's still a greater than, and then when you divide that, you get -5. So I'm going to put that here on the graph. It's going to be greater than, so we're going to go in towards the positives. I'm going to put 0 here, 1, 2, 3, 4. Here's -5. Open circle because it just says greater than, doesn't say equal to. And since it's greater than, we're going up towards the numbers that are bigger than a. Number 6, dividing by -2 to solve. So I divided by a negative, which means this must flip the other direction. So this is also -5, but it's going to say c is less than -5. So I'm going to put 0 up here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Here's -5. Again, open circle because there's no equals, but now this says less than. When we shade, we are representing the answers. We are representing c with a variable. So C, or all the solutions to this problem, are the numbers that are less than -5. So we have to shade all the solutions that are less than -5. Okay, number 7, couple options. You can distribute, and I saw people do that today when they were working on this. But you can also simplify first. Inside parentheses, a 2e minus a 6e, that's going to be a -4e. And then we're going to go ahead and multiply by -3/4. I know that negative is a little hard to see. So a negative and a negative is a positive, and 3/4 times 4, well, think about it. We know how to multiply with fractions. Those are actually going to cancel, and we're left with 3. 3/4 of 4 is 3. So, and it's going to be a positive 3e. Greater than or equal to 9. So divide by 3. No flip, because there's no negative. E is greater than or equal to 3. So here's 0, 1, 2, and 3. Closed circle because of the equal sign. The solutions, which I'm going to represent with the shading, are everything greater than 3, and that's all the numbers up this direction. Number 8, dividing by 24. Be careful, people want to divide by 3 here because we like 24 divided by 3, but we're trying to isolate the variable, so we have to get rid of the 24. We are dividing by 24, so B is less than or equal to this answer. Now, you could simplify it. You could turn it to a decimal. So if we do 3 divided by 24, we are going to get 0.125. So we could leave it like that, or you can leave it as a fraction and simplify it. Divide by 3, and that would be 1/8. So we could say 1/8 or 0.125. Regardless, that's going to be between 0 and 1. Here's 0, here's 1. Okay, so it's going to be in between there if we wanted to do that. You can actually just call one of these lines 1/8 if you want, then this would be 2/8, and this would be 3/8. They need to be equal. So you can't call this 1/8 and then go, here's 2, here's 3. So you got to count by the same thing. But this is fine, and we're going to put the circle on the 1/8. We're going to fill it in because of the equal sign. And this says B is less than, and so all the numbers less than are this direction. Number 9, similarly to number 7, I can combine here first. This is 5D when I put D and 4D together. So I'm multiplying 2/5 times 5. Well, that's convenient. 2/5 of 5 is 2. So this becomes 2D. Again, you can use the calculator if you don't know that off the top of your head. And then I'm going to divide by 2. And I'm going to leave everything where it is. This is where students get confused. I'm going to leave D on the right side. I'm not going to flip this because there wasn't a negative. And 30 divided by 2 is 15. If you want to rewrite this, like the answer key did, you put the D on the other side. This is open towards the D in our answer, so it needs to be open towards the D in our answer. These say the same thing. Even if you left it like this, you read it from the variable. D is greater than 15 because it's open towards the D. So I'm going to put 0 here. I'm going to count 5, 10, 15. Open circle, there's no equal sign. If D is greater than 15, it's everything up this direction. Okay, number 10. The right side here can be simplified. Remember, we have a dividing line. if things can be simplified on the left side or the right side, you combine them. You can't combine across your dividing line, but you can on the same side. So the 9 plus 5 just becomes 14. So we're trying to solve this. All we have to do is get this negative 7/4 off of the f. So multiplying by the reciprocal or dividing by the negative 7/4, either way is fine. I'm going to multiply by the reciprocal. So times negative 4/7, just flip it and multiply. Negative 4/7. So since I multiplied by a negative, or you could have divided both sides by negative 7/4, either way, dividing both sides by negative, multiplying both sides by negative, this is going to flip. So it's going to say f is greater than or equal to. We're going to go ahead and multiply that. So 14 times 4/7 is 8. Now it was a negative, so it's going to be negative 8. And again, if you had divided both sides by 7/4 to get rid of it, you're going to get the same answer. 14 divided by, see if you can see that, 14 divided by 7/4. And you get the same answer. Okay, I threw the negative in that one. This one didn't put the negative there, but 8 is going to be the answer regardless. So f is greater than or equal to negative 8. I'm just going to go ahead and put that right here. Close the circle. Call this negative 8. So this is all your positive numbers up here. If you wanted to count by, let's say 4, so this would be negative 4 and this would be 0. So f is greater than or equal to, and the numbers that are greater than negative 8 are going to be this direction towards your positives. Okay, 11. Simplify this side first, just multiply. This is negative 6g. Bring that down. Divide by negative 6. I just said divide by a negative, which means I need to flip. So I'm going to leave g on this side, but I'm going to flip it. It was closed towards the g, now it's open. 15 over 6. Let's see what that turns out to be. 2.5. Okay, that's a good decimal. We can leave it like that. Now it's going to be negative 2.5, or you could leave it as a fraction, 15 over 6, which you could divide by 3, and you're going to get 5 over 2. It's open towards the g. So g is greater than. If I wanted to rewrite it, it would look like this. Greater than. So, let's see. Put this as 0, 0.5, 1, 2, 2.5. So you need to be consistent in what you're counting by. And it's going to be an open circle. Oh, and we're supposed to be in the negatives. So that's not going to work. Let's start over here. Let's put 0 up here. Negative 0.5, negative 1, negative 1.5, negative 2, negative 2.5. Okay, counting by 0.5 away from 0. And you don't have to put 0 on your graph. I just like it as a starting point. Okay, so g is going to be greater than negative 2.5. No equal sign, so I don't fill this in. And greater than is going to go this direction. I'll just go ahead and cover my mistake there. Okay, 12. We got some simplifying to do on both sides. First of all, this is 96. Just put them together. And on this side, we're going to multiply. So we're going to do 8 times negative 6. We're going to get negative 48. Okay, that's what we're trying to get rid of. So we're going to divide by negative 48. We divided by a negative. So k is still on the left side, but this flips because I divided by a negative. And 96 divided by 48 is just going to be a nice 2, and it's going to be negative 2. So here's 0, negative 1, negative 2. Open circle, not included. We're shading the solutions. All the solutions are greater than negative 2, so we're going this direction. Okay, on to 3-7. Just solving some 2 steps now. You can do the checks on these, but it was not required. So, just trying to get x by itself, I'm going to add 7 to both sides. 5x is less than 10, divide by 5. No negatives here, so stays x less than 2. Got to get a by itself. This is a positive 11, so I'm minusing 11 to get rid of it. This minus goes with the 2, and it stays as a negative. 19 minus 11 is 8. Divide by a negative. So since I divided by a negative, I have to flip this. So now it's a is greater than negative 4. Now, first glance, I would like to simplify here, but this is a c and this does not have a c. They're not like terms. You cannot combine, so we are just multiplying here. We're going to distribute the 2/5 to simplify this side. The nice thing is, think about these as over 1. 5's on the bottom, so we're going to divide here. Now, you can do it in your calculator. The 15 divided by 5 is 3 times the 2 is a 6. C, 5 divided by 5 is 1, so I just get 2. You can use the calculator if you can't do it in your head. Minus 2, so 6c is greater than negative 30. Divide by 6, and c is greater than negative 5. Okay, number 7. You can deal with some fractions here if you want to. Now, when we did 3-7, we hadn't learned how to clear fractions yet. So you don't have to clear the fractions, but you certainly can. So I'm going to go ahead and clear the fractions. Good practice. Instead of trying to plug everything in the calculator. But if you wanted to solve this, you could add 4/3 to both sides. Use your calculator to handle the fractions. Divide by negative 3/5 or multiply by the reciprocal, and you'll get your answer. But I'm going to go ahead and distribute the 15 and clear out these fractions. So 15 divided by 5, that is 3 times the 3 is going to be a negative 9k. 15 divided by 3 is 5 times 4, 20. 15 divided by 3 is 5 times the 1 is 5. So this should work here. So I'm going to go ahead and add 20. And divide. And now I divided by a negative, so I have to flip. And I'm left with my answer like that. Okay, number 8. Some simplifying to do here. When I distribute this, it's a negative 5. So 2m comes down. Negative 5 times m is negative 5m. Negative 5 times 2 is negative 10. Still got simplifying to do before I do anything else. So 2 minus 5, that's negative 3m. Now I'm good to go and start solving. So I'm going to go ahead and add 10. So I have negative 3m when I divide by that. I will have to flip. Not yet though. So that's 18. Divide by negative 3. Now I have to flip because I divided by a negative, and that's negative 6. Simplify. 6n minus 6 minus 2n. So all I've done is distribute. Now I can combine like terms. 6n minus 2n, that's 4n. Still have a minus 6. Add 6 to both sides. That's 32. Divide by 4. No negatives, no flip. N is less than or equal to 8. All right, last section, clearing fractions. So I need to find the multiple of the number that both 3 and 7 can fit into evenly. That would be 21. Multiply them by each other. And don't forget to multiply everything by 21, including the 5. So I got to do 21 times 5. That's 105. When I multiply times the fraction, this is a negative. I know it's hard to see. That's a negative. You can see it's extended. It just kind of bleeds in there. But this is a little fraction bar. That big fraction bar there means this was supposed to be a negative. Bad copy. But when I multiply times 1/3, I'm actually dividing by 3, and so this is 7. And since it's 1/3, you multiply times the top, it's just negative 7. And then here, when I multiply times 3/7, I'm dividing by 7 and timesing by 3. So when I divide by 7, that's 3, and 3 times 3 is a 9y. So I'm left with this. Easy to solve now, so add 7 to both sides. I'm going to get 112 equals 9y, and then just divide by 9. 112 doesn't divide nicely by 9, and so you can leave your answer as 112 over 9. Number 3, my denominators are 12 and 3 that I'm trying to clear out. You could multiply them together and go by 36, but I also know that 3 goes into 12. So I could just multiply by 12, because 12 goes into 12, obviously, and 3 also goes into 12. Make sure everything gets the 12, including this. So the 12s cancel here. When I go to multiply by 5 12s, the 12s cancel, leaving me 5a. And then right here, 12 times a over 3, I actually divide by the 3, and that's 4, and then multiply that times the top. So that's a 4a. And 12 times 12 is 144. Simplify this side. 5a minus 4a is just a 1a. And at that point, I'm done. A is isolated. So just by simplifying, I've got my answer. Okay, on number 4. Can't just multiply by 7 because 3 doesn't go into it. So The number that they both go into again is 21. When you go ahead and multiply by 21, you're dividing by the bottom of the fraction and then multiplying whatever's left by the top. So 21 divided by 7 is 3 times the top, that's 3d. 21 divided by 7 again is 3 times the top, that's a 9d, 3 times 3. And right here, 21 divided by 3 is 7 times 5 is 35. So combine like terms here, that's 12d less than 35. Finish it off by dividing by 12. No negatives, no flip. 35 over 12, not a great decimal, so we're just going to leave it as 35 over 12. All right, number 5. You probably struggled on this one if you tried to clear fractions out early. We've got some multiplication and distributing to do here, and we hadn't really talked about these. So if you struggled on this one, just watch closely, but you won't see this on the quiz. You can't clear out those fractions until you have this side simplified and we don't have any multiplication. So we have cleared out fractions when everything we saw was addition or subtraction. This is multiplication, so you can't actually do that. This is really just one term. So you can do it, but when you go ahead and try and clear those fractions, you can't multiply everything here because this is just one term. And I'm not going to get any farther into it, but I'm just going to show you what you need to do. So you're going to go ahead and distribute first before you start trying to clear a fraction. So when I multiply this times this, you're multiplying just the tops. So I'm going to get n over 12, 3 times 4. And when I multiply here across the top, 4 over 3 is what I'm going to get. Remember, when you multiply fractions, you're just multiplying numerators and denominators. Okay, so now I've simplified it, I've distributed. Now I can clear fractions if I want to. So I'm going to multiply by 12 to clear out those fractions because 3 and 12 go in. So the 12s cancel, leaving me just n. 12 divided by 3 is 4, so plus that 4 is 16. Not plus, but times. 12 divided by 3 is 4, times 4 is 16. And then I got 9 times 12, which should be 108. And all I got to do here now is minus 16, and I'm done because that n is already by itself in terms of, it doesn't have a coefficient. Well, it does, it's 1, but it doesn't have another coefficient we need to get rid of. So when we subtract this, we get 92, and that's my final answer. So don't worry too much about those, but you do need to simplify that multiplication and that distributing before you clear out the fractions. Okay, number 3, this is an extended fraction bar, so that's actually a negative. I've got a 5, I've got a 6, and I've got a 2. So I need a number that they all go into. You can multiply all of them together, that always works. 6 times 5 is 30, times 2 is 60, so you could use 60. But when I do 6 times 5 and get 30, I also notice, okay, obviously 6 and 5 go into 30, but so does 2. So the 30 is going to work just fine. But if you use 60, you get the same answer. Everything has to get multiplied, so I'm going to get a negative here because of that. Now 30 divided by 5 is 6 times the 2, that's a 12m. 30 divided by 6 is 5 times the 1 is just 5. 30 divided by 2 is 15 times the 3 is 45. Much easier to work with now, just minus 5. And so I get negative 12m equals 40, dividing by negative 12 to get rid of it. And when I do 40 divided by negative 12, not a great decimal. Now on the answer key, they said negative 3 and 1/3. They left their answer not as an improper fraction, but as a mixed number. This is negative 3 and 1/3. We should know that 3 repeated is 1/3. But we have not made it a habit of writing things in that form. We've left them as fractions. So if I put this fraction in 40 over 12, I'm going to leave it as that improper fraction, 10/3. So instead of 3 and 1/3, so the answer in the book said 3 and 1/3. We don't really use numbers like that in algebra too much because when I go to try and multiply with this and add with this, it gets complicated. But if I leave this as 10/3, much easier to work with. So my final answer here is going to be negative 10/3, but these are equivalent to each other. I don't want that decimal rounded, so either improper fraction or mixed number, but I prefer the improper fraction. Okay, last one, number 4. A 7 and a 3, we've already talked about. 21 is the right number to use there. So we've got 21 times 3, that's negative 63. 21 times 6/7, I divide by the 7 times by the 6. So I get 3 when I divide, and so 18n. In here, 21 divided by 3 is 7 times the 2. That's going to be 14n. Nice and easy to simplify this side. 18 minus 14 is 4n. And so I'm just dividing by 4 now. And so this is going to be my final answer. 63 divided by 4. You could leave it as 15.75. Not a bad decimal. The book left it as negative 15 and 3/4. Okay, 0.75 is 3/4. And if you didn't want to do either one of those, because I don't like this one with the fraction, the mixed number, 15 and 3/4 is terrible. I don't like to work with that. But 15.75 is perfectly fine. It's a good decimal. We didn't round it. So I like that answer. If you wanted to leave it as a fraction like we've gotten used to, 63 over 4, let's make sure it doesn't simplify. And it doesn't. So you could have left this as n equals negative 63 over 4. So either one of those answers, and I know the book answer was this one, but I prefer either one of these.